Hey everyone, and welcome back to week number 3. So I'm just as surprised as the rest of you that I've made it this far. This will be the third batch of 6 heroes that we'll showcase here throughout the week. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first hero for this week is a hero that was originally named the Slaying Slave. Now, again, I did this many years ago, and to be honest, I wasn't 100% in love with the name, and so I've obviously changed the name to be, um, I guess the word to be a little less offensive um, towards people. So, but anyway, this was the original doodle that I did for this particular character. I had originally kind of envisioned him as being an alien hero that battled against tyrants and stuff on his home planet. But I've later adjusted his backstory a little bit, and you'll see here as we get to that section of the video. So let's go ahead and get into the redrawing of this particular hero. So let's pull up that. So here's a quick sneak peek. But yeah, when drawing this hero again, like I said, I wanted to kind of bring him. My original thing is that he would have like a blue skin. Once again, being very alien and stuff. But I changed his backstories to be a little more in line with earthly heroes and stuff. So you can see there, I did an initial sketch. Didn't really like it because there just wasn't a lot of movement. And one of the things I want to try and do with these doodles here, these redrawings, is just kind of explore movement a little more and get a little more action in the poses. So I did a different drawing that focused a little more on that movement and a little more something to look at when you're viewing these illustrations. And so adding a little more excitement, I guess, is the word you'd want to use. The other thing too is, as you can see here, as I'm drawing the chains, it may look like I can draw chains really well, but that's the one thing I hate to do the most, is draw chains. And so, but I always think that they've got such a cool visual appeal on character design, and so I begrudgingly did it and drew them. So, but yeah, as we kind of finish up here, you can see as I've designed out aspects of this character, and this character really is hammer focused, similar to the comic book character Thor, but we'll get into the backstory about that a little bit. So, but yeah, not a lot about it. I mean, we'll get into obviously his backstory and stuff, but from a character design perspective, I kind of wanted to keep him very simple and stuff like that. So, just kind of a hooded figure with chains and shackles, and then obviously the pronounced part of the character design, which is the hammer. So yeah, we're kind of finishing up the shading and getting into the coloring, and once again, as I had mentioned before, just moving away from more of the alien aspect and more of an earthly background story. Obviously, I changed like his skin color, and just a lot more of his backstory has been adjusted. So but yeah, we'll get into that here directly as I kind of finish up the coloring and stuff. Initially, I think I had redrawn him a couple years ago, and I think rather than doing like a light cream colored hood and stuff, I think I did more of an orange. But I didn't like that design because I wanted him to kind of have like the appearance of like the 19th century, I guess, slaves back, and during Civil War or after Civil War, kind of the slave attire. And the orange felt a little too what's the word, like convict or like modern prison garb, and so I had kind of adjusted it to more of a lighter color, and even added a little more red to it to give it a little more coherency with the rest of the piece. So, but yeah, no, I had a lot of fun, and this character I really enjoyed doing a little more of the backstory towards, adjusting him, and so But yeah, and so he has been renamed the Shackled Slayer. So once again, just trying to keep in coherence with the what's the word I want to use here, the stipulations that I set forth for myself, 11 years ago, is ensuring to kind of, when I name these heroes, to kind of keep the same style that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all of those guys at the early Marvel comics age did with a lot of their heroes. Just kind of have the rhyming or the context of the name, slaying, or Shackled Slayer, just both of them have that S kind of feel. So, but anyway, yeah, he was renamed to the Shackled Slayer. So let's go ahead and get in with him. So yeah, here's the final illustration for him. Pardon me. And then here's his backstory and powers and abilities. So the Shackled Slayer. The end of the Civil War marked the realization of the U.S. Constitution's promise, freedom for all. Among the newly freed was none other than John Henry, now remembered as one of America's first folk heroes. Over time, many of his legends have been altered, especially the tale of his contest against the steam-powered rail driver. According to the oldest accounts, after nearly 2 years battling the mechanical giant, John faced it one last time on the eastern shores of the Great Salt Lake near Oregon. He drove his final spike mere seconds before the machine could, striking it with such force that it unleashed a lightning storm and an earthquake felt as far as Salt Lake City. Witnesses claimed that with the spirit of every American worker behind him, John's final blow destroyed the steam machine, fused the rail ties, and killed 15 men within the vicinity of his strike, and left nothing of John Henry but legend. Years later, though, as his story began to fade, new rumors spread of a hammer-wielding hero seen from southern Canada down to Mexico. Sightings of this mysterious vigilante continue even today. And so I kind of, once again, based a lot of like the current legends of John Henry and just kind of tweaked a little bit because as a kid I remember hearing a lot of these legends and folk stories that I think the official story was that he fought this steam driver that would help drive or drill holes into rock that then people could drop dynamite into, and that was like the original legend. But as a kid I remember it being that it was like this steam-powered spike driver, when they lay down railroad lines, they have like the wooden ties that these spikes would be driven into to help anchor the not the railroad ties, but the railroad rails themselves. And that the legend goes is that's how the American West and the American East were connected, was through this contest between John Henry and the steel driver. And the East and the West rail lines met on in Salt Lake City, and so that kind of tweaked the legend a little bit. And so, but anyway, yeah, real name Jonathan Henry. He's about 6'7", so he's a big guy, and he weighs about 385 pounds. I based a lot of him off of the old actor. He was like a really large African American actor. He played in The Green Mile. I believe he was in Armageddon and stuff like that. But he was a giant. He was a big dude, and I think it was like Michael Duncan Clark or something like that. I can't remember his name right off the bat, but I based a lot of his looks to this. And so the powers and abilities. If the tales are true, and this figure is the legendary John Henry, then his powers are equally mythic. His mighty hammer is said to amplify his already superhuman strength and endurance. Before his contest with the steam driver, John wielded a simple steel sledge that granted him no extra power, yet he could already work for 3 days without sleep, food, or water, crushing boulders weighing up to 2 tons and shrugging off small arms fire. So he was a tough dude even as a normal, well, quote-unquote normal person. when his hammer broke during an earlier contest in West Virginia. And this contest is that contest that I had mentioned where he was fighting another steam-powered machine that would just drill holes into solid stone, where people then would drop in dynamite to blow holes in rock and stuff. So I kind of referenced that earlier legend in here as well. John sought a way to forge another and found a fragment said to come from the hammer of Thor himself. From it, he forged his new weapon, which granted even greater endurance, strength, and durability. With it, John could lift over 10 tons, survive direct hits from a 50 caliber gun, and go weeks without rest or nourishment. Some say that when he strikes with all his might, lightning follows the swing. So yeah, I had kind of tweaked his little origin, making him more of a superhero, even though he was kind of one of America's first superheroes, kind of one of the original Avengers team. You had Pecos Bill and Paul Bunyan and John Henry and I think Johnny Appleseed and among others that were kind of the original quote-unquote superheroes of the old Western age. But yeah, with this one, his normal hammer broke in a contest in West Virginia, and so as he was scurrying for ore, he found fragments that were remnants of the hammer of Thor, and he used those to forge his new hammer, which gives him added strength, but also to some degree the ability to summon lightning as well. So, but as you can see, his power stats, he is strong. He's got considerable durability and speed. His intelligence is that of just an average educated American. Not really any real energy projection aside from just the lightning, but it isn't something that he can really control. It's more just out of just sheer effort or might can he really summon that kind of stuff. And then obviously his stamina is his highest rating, able to go a considerable amount of time without really needing any amount of rest. So, but yeah, so that is the Shackled Slayer. I'll show him one last time here as we close out the video. So, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.